height map creator slash what we put as the name for the null, which is export height map. And now that's the name of the path that's already on disk in quotes. So end the little quotes and slash. Now for the float u float v is gonna be map u for one. If I can type, oh my goodness, map u and map v, and the last number over here is gonna be an L, small L, capital L, doesn't matter. Then close that and enter. Now you got your height map coming in from what you call it, cop, whatever. You can see the little flat things. You don't want that kind of stuff. And if you're wondering why the L is at the very end, I just pull up my text box by pressing Control Shift T. So if I type in X help and say text, it gives me these values over here, and you can see all the values that you can type. For now, what I typed in the very end was an L, which just means luminance. So the black and white values pretty much is what I extracted. And if you're also wondering where I got the what you call it, the map u, map v, if you look over here, we have applied data to point texture, vertex texture, all that kind of good stuff. So if I right click on the points up and say help, it gives me the help page for the points up. And if I put local variables, I have a map u, map v for point texture coordinates. So that's actually how you get the data out. So we got the first way you can actually use this to get the values out. Now I'm gonna go ahead and copy this whole expression from the Y position, which you just put Alice. So I'm gonna Control C to copy it. Now I'm gonna do mouse click on the texture and say an attribute create, and attribute create. All right, so now our grid is flat one more time. So we're gonna call this attribute height. All right, and then for the value, I'm gonna just paste the expression which you just did from earlier. So it's pretty much the same expression. So there's the expression, same expression, nothing different. Then now what you can actually do is actually drop in another points up. But now you actually got an attribute called height over here. So pretty much you can actually just go ahead and map it out. So point, but instead of using the same expression in the TY, all you gotta do now is just put a $sign over here and type in the same name you give the expression, which was height, and now you can just press enter, and well, you get the same thing all over again. So same style. So you got the data flowing out exactly like you would want. Now you can also use a third style. So we're gonna go ahead and miscellaneous, drop in a verbs up, and a manipulate, drop in a verbs up, whichever one you feel much comfortable with. All right, now the grid is flat one more time. So we're gonna go ahead and dive inside the verb. And for one, inside verbs, we're gonna need UV data because verbs doesn't really bring the data automatically. I'm gonna maximize this, Control B to maximize. And for one, you're gonna import the UV values. So I might say geometry, import attribute. I'm gonna press P on the keyboard to get our parameter editor, and it's a vector value because UV is actually a vector value. As you can see over here, it's a 3 float value. So you're gonna type in the name UV, all in small letters, and if you actually look, it actually is also in small letters over here. So actually that's how you actually derive data straight up of the SOP level. So we got UV data. So what you want to do with the UV data is actually break it down. So a vector to float. So that way you break it up into the 3 components that it's actually made out of. So you're pretty much stripping it down to the 3 components, so X, Y, Z values right now. And the reason that's necessary is because we're gonna kind of give it we're gonna have to get a color map which needs UV values. It's a 2D image. It's a 2D image, so obviously it doesn't need the W data because that's a Z value. So it's just UV data. So plug it in the first value over here, which is the U, and the second value, which is the V. The third value is a W, which is not, well, 2D image is a 3, it's not 3D. So now you got that set up, we need a color map to be on the scene level. Color map is a file that's already on disk. We have nothing on disk, but what we're gonna go ahead and do is just middle mouse click on this and create a parameter node out of this, so that we can go on on scene level and actually give it a name. Now it's gonna output a color, which is good enough for us, but we really don't need the color for right now. What we need is actually black and white image. So under generic, you can drop in a luminance VOP, and what that does is actually translate, well, not really translate, but more like convert your color values to luminance values, so pretty much black and white values. Now we're gonna implement, well, same techniques as earlier. So we're gonna go ahead, add an attribute over here, and the attribute name is gonna be height, just like earlier, and I'm gonna plug that in over here. Now Houdini will automatically do the conversion for you to make it a float value and all that kind of good stuff. And now I'm also go ahead and plug this in over here under the color. Now you could actually plug this in directly, or you could plug in the text map color to this one. Either one you feel like, it's all pretty much the same thing. Now I'm gonna just plug in the luminance value and then go back up. Now I should have two extra attributes, one color and one luminance for the height, that is. So one color CD and one height attribute. Now for our VOP, if I go out of maximum, you can see our mandrel pick, and if you don't want the reflections, you can press D on the keyboard and the miscellaneous, turn off specular highlights, and now you have your mandrel pick. This is the famous guy called the mandrel. And now what you want to do is actually get the height map straight up out of the height map creator we did over here. Now I'm gonna go ahead and use the same function, the same expression which I did over here. Only this particular time I'm gonna just copy this particular portion, and